The NiceHCK NX8 is arguably the best hybrid that NiceHCK has ever made, and is one of the most compelling choices under $200. But what makes it such a good choice for anyone looking for a good hybrid IEM? Let's find out. First and foremost, thank you to NiceHCK or NiceHCK for sending over the NX8 in exchange for my honest thoughts. I was not paid or compensated to say anything about the product, and these are all of my honest impressions. So NiceHCK or NiceHCK, however you want to say it, I'm going to call it NiceHCK because it just flows in your mouth better. But NiceHCK has been in the industry for quite a while, and they're pretty known for like the likes of cables, the likes of their earbuds, and their IEMs as well, particularly the NX series of IEMs that have been around since apparently 2019 with the very first gen NX7, and we have the latest NX8, which is still technically part of the NX series of IEMs, but does take a little bit of a different approach, not only aesthetically, but also in the internals. This features a single dynamic driver, 6 balanced armature drivers, and a piezoelectric driver, which is the hallmark of the NX series of IEMs. This is $200, as you may already know, and I really love this thing. But before we continue talking about, the little details about it, let's talk about its unboxing experience. The unboxing experience of the NX8 is very satisfying with a celestial-inspired design. Inside the box comes the IEMs themselves, the leather case, the cable, a box of ear tips, and the paperwork. The ear tips are a highlight in this unboxing as it resembles liquid silicone ear tips like the Moondrop Spring tips and the TRNT ear tips. They're soft, grippy, and very comfortable to wear. The case is voluminous and can carry a few IEMs or an IEM and a DAC. It also comes with replacement nozzles, but it does not change the sound and is only there for modding or repairs. The NX8 boasts a very aesthetically pleasing and consistent celestial-inspired design with a purple galaxy-like faceplate in a relatively small and lightweight shell. It's not the most premium-looking or feeling IEM out there, but it's perfectly justified for the price. My only gripe is that the nozzle is not very secure, potentially due to the resin not properly gripping to the detachable nozzle. I find that it spins quite frequently even if you don't want it to. Fit-wise, it's small but lacks any wing for stability. It makes the IEMs very comfortable but not very stable nor sealing well. The cable is a nice 2-strand construction with a comfortable material on the skin, and it is malleable. It is free from microphonics and is not memory prone, but the ear hooks are a little bit too wide and does not properly hook into the ear. So finally, talking about the sound of the NX8, the NX8 features a very balanced and I would say pretty traditional hybrid tuning in this price range specifically. But what I do think what makes the NX8 such a special IEM is just how cohesive and well balanced all of the drivers are working to make such a satisfying listening experience. And I'm going to expound that on more, but this is a genuinely very, very cohesive, very balanced set that you can really throw into a lot of genres, not really ask for more. Well, give or take though, I still think this is a very technical set, but the focus is definitely on its musical and, like I would say, fun sounding nature. Now taking a look at the frequency response graph in the screen right now, this is honestly a really nice graph. It follows my balance target pretty well, just a little bit lower on the bass and a little bit later in the ear gain, or at least the tippy top of the ear gain, but it's a generally well balanced and nice gliding, graph. Like the sub bass extension is really, really good. I would argue that mid bass is perfectly fine. I would say it's not too emphasized, nor is it tucked down. It's a very gentle glide and not a scoop, which is what I personally like. There's a little bit of a hum around that 2K region that doesn't end there. It goes up again around 3K to 4K region, but it does give it a bit of a sparkle and a bit of a, I would say, treble emphasis that doesn't really get too irritating. That's also thanks to the surprisingly smooth glide all the way to 8K, going down to the 10K, which is a little bit more subdued, but picks it up a bit in the upper treble. But at that region, you can barely hear it, and the accuracy of the rig is also not very, accurate. But overall, it's just a really nice, well-balanced, neutral style graph. You're not really expecting a very fun sound for something like this, but you are getting a really decent, well-balanced, and like I said, very versatile sound. Now, for my listening experience, I have to say that the thing that really stood out for me for the NX8 is just the impeccable tonal balance. Now, I've heard of like a lot of hybrids from lower and cheaper prices and all the way to the like flagships and stuff, and they usually like fall into about like two categories in my opinion: things that overly do the technical sounding side, and those that do a little bit of a too much of a V-shaped or like too skewed of a fun sound signature. And I respect that, you know. I do really love V-shape and I love highly technical sounding sets, but sometimes you do want something just a little bit more, you know, versatile, listenable for like basically every single genre, and not really have to worry about pairing or finding the right IEM for that genre. And I would say that the NX8 is exactly one of those IEMs that can do that absolutely amazingly. The bass is just really well balanced. The kick is more than enough for me. It does get a little bit warm due to the proximity of the mids and the sub bass just being a little bit too dominant. I would say that it's perfectly justified, and depending on the ear tips that you would use, you can like tone that down by like lessening up the seal a bit. The mids are very full, very warm. I really enjoyed how the mids sound on this. It's really well balanced. And the treble, my goodness, despite not being like a treble head treble, not the emphasis of the set, I still think that it's perfectly capable for bringing in a bit of a sparkle whenever the track needs it. It's just a very versatile set depending on what you're listening to. And I could give you a bit of examples. Like, for example, Zoo by Nekritaki, one of my favorite albums of all time. It just sounded absolutely fantastic. Now, that has a mixing that's a little bit on the brighter side, as you might expect from Japanese songs. Like, I kind of have that preconceived notion for Japanese songs to be a bit more of a brighter mixing, but the NX8 was able to handle that really well. Something like You Should Head North just sounds, oh, it's so good. The way that it balances the bass guitars, like the it's just perfect. I really love it. And obviously the vocals just shine perfectly without over emphasizing all the rest of the instruments. The only issue that I do have with the NX8 with this particular album is that since it is on the brighter mixing side of, you know, songs, it does tend to emphasize that metallic timbre that is an unfortunate side effect of these hybrid IEMs. Despite how much you want to smooth out the treble, it still does get through. But I would say that it's perfectly fine, not necessarily overly intrusive. It is just honestly a decent example of what a hybrid sound might entail for someone who's coming into this like space or space of hybrid sounding, or hybrid IEMs sounding, but hybrid IEMs. Technically, this thing is a very technically decent performing, that's a lot of technicalities, my goodness, but this is a very decent technically performing IEM. Now, for a hybrid, that might not sound very good because, you know, hybrids are meant to push the boundaries of how good an IEM technically can be, but this does balance it out in a way that it still has a decent level of technicalities and still sound pretty natural. And the perfect example would be Hotel California. Now, this track is not what I would call overly complex, but it is very well layered, and the NX8 was able to replicate that kind of technically complicated track with just ease, and I really enjoy that with the NX8. I mean, obviously you could make a comment about the somewhat sloppy bass not being really as defined as something like the A1000, which I'll mention later, or something like, I don't know, give or take, I would say that the P5+2 is just a tad bit more technical than this. And again, comparing that later, but that hybrid is just more geared towards more technical, more V-shaped sound than something like the NX8, which focuses more on a chill and more relaxing, but still very much detailed and nuanced listening experience. Compared to the Apple P5 Plus 2, the P5 Plus 2 offers a more detailed, more technical, but less natural and slightly more metallic sound compared to the NX8's more relaxed, more musical, and more natural tone. I find that the P5 Plus 2 sacrifices timbre over having a more technical sound, while the NX8 focuses more on a flatter, more warm, neutral overall tone. The bass is more full on the NX8, but the treble is better defined on the P5 Plus 2. However, the NX8's glide in the upper treble sounds considerably more natural and consistent compared to the P5 Plus 2, which has a strong emphasis that leads it to sound a bit plasticky and metallic. Compared to the Rose Technics QT9 Mark III, the QT9 Mark III is a bright neutral hybrid with emphasis on technicalities over musicality. This makes it a more technically capable but less versatile and natural sounding set over the NX8's more balanced and natural sound. The NX8 is less technical and doesn't have as good of a detail retrieval and resolution as the QT9 Mark III, but it is instead better for more genres overall. The QT9 Mark III can also get quite shouty and sibilant on some tracks, while the NX8 is generally safe on most tracks and scales on volume better. Compared to the SIMGOT EA1000, it tells a very similar story to the QT9 Mark III with a bright neutral tuning focused on technicalities, but the EA1000 is far more balanced than the former. The EA1000 has a closer tuning to the NX8 with a richer mid-range and smoother top end, but still falls under a bright neutral sound that specializes in technicalities. This means that it shines in specific genres that highlight that, but isn't as versatile as the NX8's flatter, more neutral, and safer tuning. The NX8 is also less offensive sounding, as there is less emphasis in the treble and more low-end energy. Compared to the Dunu Falcon Ultra, the Falcon Ultra has a more V-shaped, fun, and engaging sound overall. However, it is more interesting that the fact that it's more consistent compared to the NX8. The Falcon Ultra also has a more technically capable sound and is also more resolving than the NX8, but the NX8 has a more neutral tuning compared to the Falcon Ultra's more V-shaped tuning. This makes the NX8 a technically more versatile IEM, but I found myself enjoying the music better on the Falcon Ultra most of the time. Now to finally conclude, I genuinely think that the NX8 has to be probably one of the better hybrids under the $200 range, and I can't deny the fact that this is just such a nice listening experience from start to finish with very little complaints. Now, I know I've made my comments about the whole not really being that technical for a hybrid, and also the same about the kind of lackluster fit, which is to be expected, but the tips kind of save it. But besides that, I really can't complain much about this IEM. There's so much to love about it and little to hate. It's just a really well done hybrid that I think most people will enjoy. So if you're looking for something like that, something versatile, something very relaxing yet still very technical or technically capable, then the NX8 is a perfectly good set. And honestly, I cannot recommend this IEM enough. And I want to share with you guys my rating with it, as I really do like to add this thing at the end. I'm technically the review is over here. I'm just pulling out my sheet of review, but the NX8 has a total score of 6.29 and an enjoyment score of 6. And I also want to introduce something interesting. This is my little Bamboobie. No, that's not a good name. Bamobi? I'm cringing already, but let's call him Bamobi. And I would like to give the NX8 a Bamobi approved. But you'll see in future videos when I do end up using Bamobi a little bit more, that Bamobi is a little bit of a secret. If I really enjoy something, something might come out of this Bamobi. So stay tuned. But anyways, yeah, thank you so much for watching my review on the NX8. If you like this video, consider giving me a like. If you want to see more of my content, subscribe, check out my socials, check out Audio Notions, join the Discord, and with that, obodio out.